story of how I found the love of my afterlife. I had been drifting through towns and settlements, to camps and ditches along the side of the road for so many years I had lost track. My own death had left my psyche ravaged, and I had been struggling with depression for decades. I think this is how many of my kind go feral. They give up and forget their humanity. The years drag, and you end up losing pieces of yourself slowly along the way. Until one day, there is nothing left of the person you were. But no matter. This is a happy story. I am not always so full of dour and gloom, you know. I had been following the trade routes west, half in the Fugue state, tagging along with those who would tolerate me, and eventually I ended up stumbling into the hub, the central economic powerhouse of the NCR, and chief operating site of the Crimson Caravan. I didn't even have two caps to rub together when I first saw her. She had big, beautiful brown eyes and strong, sturdy legs, and the most gorgeous two heads I have ever seen on a Brahmin. I knew immediately that the Lord had sent her to me, and that we would form a lifelong bond with one another. Of course, at this time, she was in the employ of the Crimson Caravan, and to purchase her. This is a term I hate. I would much rather think of it as buying her out of a contract. Anyway, it would be a king's ransom. For 5 years, I worked tirelessly as a janitor, stable hand, miner, repairman, ditch digger, and any other job the CC would offer me, making friends and growing a small congregation along the way. I was able to scrape together enough caps to make a down payment on Enola, as I would come to call her, and it would be another 10 years of nearly indentured servitude before I was able to buy her freedom outright. For context, I should tell you a little bit about the CC and their leadership. Primarily that they are vehemently anti-Ghoul, and have attempted to nullify my contracts and the lien on Enola almost constantly. They saw it as bad business to have a Ghoul in their employ, as anything but unskilled labor. However, I had done enough favors around the trading posts, and garnered enough goodwill that I was able to stay one step ahead of them for those years. Mainly because I had made myself indispensable in a certain regard. There are a number of loops in the Mojave, Central California, and Nevada that are suicide, and nearly impossible to maintain due to radiation storms and the fact that the population base there have been heavily ghoulified. Many of the best equipped, manned, and brash traders have set off to establish routes and either been torn to shreds or liquefied, or they simply vanished. Even the mechanized pack mules have their circuitry melted by the rats in some areas. But not mutants like Enola, or ghouls like me. Radiation feels like a hot spring bath. Now, I know what you are thinking. Yuri, you are a skinny old man who is pretty shit with a gun. How did you survive on these loops? Well, did you know that feral ghouls do not attack one another, and they have no taste for Brahmin? Being the only ghoul in the employ of the CC put me in a very advantageous position. So, I took the contract on one of the suicide loops, and packed Enola with as many goods as she could carry, then set off into the feral-infested territory, toward the settlements on the other side. The CC never knew how I made it through and back all those times, and I certainly never elucidated them. When it came to the radiation stormlands and the valleys of death, I would simply strip naked and pack my clothes in with Enola, then tie myself to her, making it look like I was a feral who had been caught up in the reins of a pack Brahmin. And we walked like that, through perdition, like Dante led by Virgil through hell. I never fired a shot, and I never saw another living soul. Once, I witnessed a mob of feral ghouls run down and tear a juvenile deathclaw limb from limb. Enola and I stood witness as they moved like legion in a wave over the poor creature. And when the mob cleared, not a scrap of it remained. I was afraid then, but Enola nudged me along and kept me on my path. She is truly one of God's greatest works. After nearly a decade working these loops, I earned enough money to buy Enola outright from the CC and stake a route of my own. Finally, Enola and I would not have to wade through the nightmares, and we would have a sunny, happy route just for us. Maybe I could preach along the way and bring comfort to those souls who needed it. Indeed, this would not be. The CC's leadership had become more and more hostile towards me, even in light, or perhaps due to my success on these suicide loops. It was another traitor, Billy Holmes, who tipped me off to the fact that the CC was desperate to get rid of me, one way or another, and were slowly working out how to do such a thing. It was Providence, then, that just about this time, the Crimson Caravan had made it a nasty habit to leave their computers unattended. I ended up stumbling across some files and communications that the CC's competitors and the NCR would find highly interesting. Did you know that you can pay the Grey Khans to do pretty much anything? Shortly thereafter, I found myself posted to establish new trade routes in the Colorado territories as an independent affiliate of the Crimson Caravan. Enola and I had done it. It was time to build our new life in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. I thank the Lord every day that He has sent me Enola May, for I know that had she not given me the strength to hold on to my humanity, I would have become like those ghouls in the wastes, and my light would have been extinguished from this world. See, I told you, this was a heavy story.
Thank you so much for watching, Wastelanders, and if you liked this video, then please subscribe to WGNR on YouTube and consider heading over to my Patreon and Streamlabs pages. On Patreon, you can get exclusive rewards, including video shoutouts, access to polls, which will help guide future WGNR content, and you can even become immortalized as a named character in a future WGNR video. If monthly donations aren't in your budget, then Streamlabs might be the way for you. There you can get some cool WGNR merchandise and make a one-time donation to help keep the channel alive. Your donations mean that I can make more content more often and continue to expand the type of programming that you get to watch on WGNR. So again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, WGNR will be back.